Right, what's up, Dragon Brood? We're back with another single card strategy brought to you from Aggro U. And if you want some merch, links down in the description below. Help us support this because I have an extra editor that helps me make these videos. But we're going to talk today about High Perfect Morcant because it's one of the most exciting, or at least one of the most popular cards from the new Lorwyn Eclipsed set. And there's a lot going on with this card. For starters, when we're talking about High Perfect Morcant, the thing you have to realize is it's not necessarily the card to build around, at least not yet. There could potentially be some stuff in future sets, but at the moment, this isn't something I would say start out building your 60 cards with this as a focus of. However, it can be a really interesting piece still. Now, for those of you unaware, High Perfect Morcant is a 4/4 for 4. It's an elf noble, so great if you love playing elves, which is one of the reasons it's so popular. However, it does say when this card or another elf you control enters, each opponent blights 1, which means they have to put a -1/-1 on one of their creatures. Now, if they have no creatures, there's no downside, but most people are playing creatures these days, especially in Standard. And then you can also tap 3 untapped elves you control to proliferate. And that means you can choose any number of targets, and then you can actually put an additional counter of whatever type of counter they have on them. Now, obviously, to play this card, you probably need to be playing some amount of elves, because if you're not, well, that's just going to be foolish because the card does nothing. That said, there are some neat elves in Standard you can play. For example, you could play Dwynen's Elite, right? That allows you to make an additional creature whenever you play it. Now, this is good because you're getting 2 elves into play, which means now your opponent has to put 2 -1/-1 counters on something. And they can't split them up. Well, I guess technically they could on High Perfect Morcant because it's an instance of 1 and an instance of 1. So I guess in that case, it could potentially be 2 different creatures. But either way, this is a situation where you're getting to put multiple counters on for one creature, which is good. You could also play Imperious Perfect, and that's another interesting one because Imperious Perfect lets you make an elf every turn, and again, it is a token, but all Morcant cares about is it an elf? In this case, it is, and your opponent then has to put a -1/-1 on something. This could make for some very interesting combat tricks where you could make your blocks, see what your opponent does, you make a token, then they have to kind of choose where they want to put the counter, or you could even make them do it before you block so you can kind of see what creature they don't care about as much or they're willing to give up, and then you could block accordingly. So there's some very fun gamesmanship you get from that little aspect of things. Now, there's another elf in Standard that people have forgotten about that's from the Foundation set, and that's Lathril Blade of Elves. This is fun because Lathril already has Menace, but every time Lathril connects and deals damage, man, why can I not say that? Lathril. Okay, there you go. Anytime Lathril connects and deals damage, you get to make that many elves. So minimum, you're going to get to make 2 elves, which is 2 -1/-1 counters or something your opponent controls. So that's also exciting as well if you want to throw one of these in there and take a little bit of advantage of that. Now, so far, we've been talking about other elves you can play alongside Morcant, and you're going to need those anyway, but not just elves. So let's talk about a couple of other cards that could actually be useful if you want to go down this path. Now, if you want to max out on creatures but still have some supporting cards, one of the new cards from Lorwyn Eclipsed is Unforgiving Aim. This is a 3-mana spell that can let you get rid of creatures with flying or enchantments, but also allow you to make a 2/2 elf, which is really cool. So this becomes really fun because now you make a creature and you get the option of your opponent putting something on their stuff. But even more so, if you don't want to make a creature, you get a little bit of flexibility here that you can get rid of some other permanents that could be problematic. So this is exactly the type of card a deck with Morcant would be interested in. It gives you the ability to deal with problems, but then when you need a creature, you can also activate this card. But another card from Lorwyn Eclipsed is Celestial Reunion. This allows you to not have to go overboard on playing High Perfect Morcant. Remember how we said this isn't the card you necessarily want to start your list with like 4 of? Well, you could play 1 or 2 in the deck, and then something like Reunion could allow you to go search for it. Then you don't have to lean so hard on it, but you just get a nice little benefit to have it in there later. So if you have 2 copies, you can go get one of them, and then just get it into play whenever you need it. You also get the flexibility of getting some other creature at a different stage of the game where something else might be more important. And there's another fun thing, because here we've kind of been talking about elves and things that kind of support the elf strategy, but what if you wanted to add a little bit of something extra into your elf deck that's not particularly an elf at all, but does some pretty fun stuff? There's a whole separate strategy you could go with cards like Finn the Fangbearer. Now, this isn't an elf by any real stretch, but it does allow you to put poison counters on something. And you may be saying why. It's like, well, if you could find a way to work poison or poison counters into your deck, alongside Finn. Well, now you have a creature with Death Touch, you get to put counters on things, and then remember that second line of text on High Perfect Morcant? Well, you can also proliferate Death Touch tokens. Well, particularly poison tokens that you've given to them by your Death Touch creature with Fang. So there's a lot of stuff you could do here. Maybe even just messing around with +1/+1 counters could actually be beneficial. And as we know, Standard has a lot of options for +1/+1 counters. But again, you kind of want to lean heavy on your elves, so you want to think about ways that you could get counters or manipulate counters while still having a lot of elves. I mean, there's still cards like the Earth Crystal, right? Every time you put a +1/+1, you get an additional one, which could be fun because then if you proliferate, you're adding one to everything, but an additional one to everything. So it's like you're proliferating 2 in terms of +1/+1 counters, and that could be kind of neat, while also making all your green spells cheaper, which most of the elf you're playing are probably going to be green. But then there's also stuff like Terrasymbiosis that whenever you put counters on a thing, you get to get an additional card. Now, admittedly, you won't get a bunch of them for each individual thing, but you'll at least get a card every turn, and that's important and useful. So, a few different things here you could do even if you just want to manipulate +1/+1 counters. Now, what does that look like when you're wanting to play +1/+1 counters? Well, that could be a bunch of different ways. There's a few elves that put counters on, but then there's also all the earthbending stuff, and then there's just spells that put counters and give you a bonus. So, you could make it like a, I don't know, let's call it a secondary strategy of the deck instead of the one you're leaning on. You could play an elf beatdown strategy that happens to also have your spells that deal +1/+1s, right? Like, that's actually a thing you could do and actually get a little bit of value still out of High Perfect Morcant, other than just getting the free blight value. So take advantage of both sides of it. Not saying that you have to. It's very possible that if you play it again in a toolboxy type scenario where you're just searching for it, then the extra -1/-1s are just bonus. They're not the thing your deck's trying to do, they just assist what you're trying to do. But overall, I think this card is really fun. It's just a matter of how you decide to go about it. I think if you're just leaning too hard on it, it's probably going to end up being a deck building mistake. But I think it could be a very powerful backup, assistant, B plan, whatever you want to call it, to kind of help what your regular strategy is already doing. But yeah, either way, have fun with this card out there. And remember to like, subscribe, click all the things that make the dings, and if nothing else, let me know if there's another card you want to see in single card strategies, because there's a lot of cards in Standard right now. So that's all I have for now. We'll see you next time.